Okay, welcome back, folks. In I don't know, period, whatever, of House Human Services, H91, continuing work on H91. So thank you all for returning this afternoon. And let's see if we can work our way through this and get through it as efficiently as possible, so that we don't need to take a dinner break and we can just be gone for dinner. How's that sound? Okay. All right. We are on implementation plan, section 5. We're at the bottom of page 18. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm trying to look at BCAP's feedback at the same time. All right. Those are ones that we already did. Okay, so this is talking about working with essentially reporting back to us. Ann and Jubilee have worked on some language here. And we have elements that we took out earlier today that are going to be inserted back here. One of the things I want to say up front is that community action agencies have asked for a longer implementation period and planning period. I'll be honest, the problem with it is that it spans more than this biennium, and I don't think that that's going to be feasible. So we're going to have to do whatever we can to assist them and all the other community partners to work through this in a way that's going to get us through this in this biennium. There's going to be 50 new people sitting around here, and you can't cross over it. No. So I appreciate the intensity of the work that's going to be involved, and we're just all going to have to pitch in to do what we can to make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible. Okay. With that in line, Jubilee has gone to pick up her daughter. So just a FYI, and I'm sure we'll be joined by Brenda shortly. So go ahead, Ann.
So the intro language for the implementation plan, so we're talking about 17 and 18, the first sentence. This is all just consistent with the changes we made in clarifying the advisory committee's role on the implementation plan and clarifying the other departments of the agency being active participants. So this would leave the in collaboration with community action agencies, but would add and in consultation with the advisory committee and I don't know how and all the other departments of AHS. I don't know how that would be worded, but that would be the addition there.
I'm sorry, Ann, could you share that one more time, please?
Yes, after in collaboration with the community action agencies, it would add and in consultation with the advisory committee. So that's kind of like a two-sided thing. And with the other departments of the Agency of Human Services.
AHS agencies, the jurisdiction.
Right.
That's where you're going.
No,
okay.
they all have
Yeah,
jurisdiction, so
yeah.
we want to bring them all in. So I would leave to Katie how that would be appropriately worded.
The concept is these other departments need to be part of this process.
Yeah.
And need buy-in. So this is just as an aside. At the Older Vermonters Caucus today, someone asked a question about how many older Vermonters were in hotels. The commissioner wasn't able to answer that question. That was a problem.
Yeah.
That was a big problem. We know how many choices for care eligible people there are. That's not sufficient. So that it put an exclamation point for me on that. So, no, it did not at all. It was totally organic and,
No, and
and I think, anyways,
telling.
it
Yeah.
was apparent that, anyways, that's illustrative of the reason why we need, to specifically call out other AHS departments, okay? So, or is everybody okay with that lead-in language? Okay. You got the intent, can you, okay. Okay, I want to back up just for a moment. Before we go further, because I'll lose it if I don't. And, on page 18, the advisor, where it's line 6 through 9. We were talking about including, when it's talking about the subcommittees and we listed off, and, older Vermonters, people with disabilities, blah, blah, blah. If we could include families with children.
You didn't want to, but now you want to. No, I'm kidding.
No,
Yeah.
that is true.
Yes.
Because I went back and
Realize.
looked and the person that gave me the feedback, was accurate in saying that, I was thinking that honestly, they were included when I was thinking about the COCs and the people
Yeah,
that they would
but they're-
select, but
But
Not
for
necessarily.
stakeholders,
Not
for
necessarily.
community stakeholders,
Yeah.
right?
okay. All right. So now, let's move. Let's move on here. So we have the intro part. We haven't settled on a date. I've heard both things. When I had thrown out a February 1 date. Some people felt it needed to be earlier. Some people felt it needed to be later. I think that the question is, if there is action that's needed by the legislature, I don't think it really can be any later than February
that's
1st.
what I was
Right.
thinking.
Right. I think we need to give them as much time as possible, but as possible really bumps up against.
Yeah. So, let's go with February 1st. Katie? And, it's just a typo on line 21, shares maximum. You got that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. Oh, I was writing on theirs. Oh, hold on. Okay, so, is there anything else on this page, on page 18? Okay, so that, I'm gonna move us to page 19. And I think we do have some additions to specifically the implementation plan shall address. Some things that we've moved, some things that, we made decisions on previously, so let's make sure we capture them, okay?
Got them listed here.
Okay.
Got 8, 9, 10, 11.
Um,
One.
But yeah,
Well, we
let's look
start
at
at the
what's
top.
there
Yeah.
first. Yes, yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
The implementation plan shall address funding allocations among community action agencies and other providers, including for services. Including for services specific to households who are experiencing or who have experienced domestic or sexual violence.
Is that part of the implementation plan if it's already part of what?
We already say that it's a duty of the.
Yeah, it's a duty they gotta do because if it's part of the implementation plan, it brings it into the advisory committee's gotta make recommendations on it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that the question is whether the advisory committee should make recommendations on it.
Sure.
It's on you, sound like
Well,
you're raising.
I feel like I have a note here. I mean, one of the things we talked about before is making sure there's adequate voice for the various parts of this whole funding structure so that it doesn't get to be directed inappropriately down the road. And so I like that this is here because it implies the idea that there's still further discussion about how the budgets get built.
For input.
It's one thing for all the dollars to dump in a certain place and allocations to be made, but still then there are other issues that come
Right,
in.
I agree.
because we are talking about in consultation with,
Right.
there's still an advisory committee.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to cross-reference where it's referenced in the statute? No, okay.
I don't know that it needs that.
Keeping in mind, this is taking effect before your new chapter is taking effect.
Keeping in mind what, Katie, I'm sorry,
This takes effect prior to your chapter taking effect.
this part does,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, so then they would still have the bill, they still have the language, even though it wouldn't be in effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll reference the whole bill, I think, when looking at this thing, so, okay. The additional funding sources identified for the program. I think I just want to make that consistent with what we put in earlier, federal, or state or end state. Okay, appropriate measures and methods for accountability developed by the department and the community action agencies. Why did I have that question right there?
Is that a timing thing? Will those be, this makes it like they've already developed them and then we're gonna get advisory input. When are they supposed to develop those?
This is sort of the same issue as raising in one because we're cross-referencing, but maybe we take the cross-reference out because again, this takes effect before.
Right, I think it needs, yeah. The cross-reference.
I think I would take it out, yeah.
The whole thing or just the pursuant? part?
Just the pursuant.
Okay, and number 4, appropriate supportive services specific to the level of a shelter or house. This is where we talked about. I knew that we had put this in here someplace. Specific to the level of shelter a household utilizes or whether the household is precariously housed, at risk, becoming homeless, or experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Any questions or thoughts about that? Anybody? I'm not seeing any. Okay. Number 5, what is allowed to be appealed? Is this for emergency or temporary shelter? Okay. That was a question from the community action agencies. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Does the Human Service Board support non-state healings? Wouldn't this?
Yes, they do.
They do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The designated agency system utilizes them. Other community providers utilize the Human Services Board, yes.
Okay,
If it's a program of the Agency of Human Services.
okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to answer the question from the community action agencies. I think that would be determined through this process. Pertaining, sorry, you're switching sides on
Can I
me.
just clarify?
Yeah.
And that, again, Amy Schulmer for the record, I'm not an expert in this, I'll learn a little part. But my understanding from their discussion was that, the CAPS discussion was that there is shelter have an appeals process. And the hotels use an appeals process that's created by the state. So they were just wondering, are you welcoming the appeals process together? And again, I'm just repeating what I heard.
I hear you. I mean, I think that honestly, I think I would like to encourage that an appeals process that addresses all levels of shelter is consistent, right? So,
I think they just wanted to ensure that there was like a lower level so that people could talk to the shelter director.
like right away, yeah. I think that's why we include language that says including option for an expedited appeal.
That's fine. We just wanted to understand.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions about that? All right, Number 6, whether lease agreements should allow payments to be withheld by the community action agencies or any other entity.
That's not the grant.
That's not the grant, no. Whether lease arrangements, so is this meaning hotel?
I left myself a note.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think when we were originally talking about, so talking about hotels, but I think that there is, because we are encouraging broader flexibility, so like master leases of an apartment building or something like that. We might want to leave it more broad. But I'm also wondering whether that actually needs to be in statute or not, because they're gonna have, as any independent organization is gonna have a contract of
It's gonna be in
some
the
sort.
lease.
It's gonna be
the
in that contract, yeah. So I don't feel, it's not like a state agency, you know what I'm saying, that has to be given authorization to do that.
Mhm.
So and as a state agency, we didn't have contracts with the hotels.
Mhm.
So I don't think we need this section, to be honest with you. Okay, so
So take that out.
number 6 is going.
Well, is it one of these areas where we feel strongly enough that we want them to include that, and what we may be asking for that from them is sort of the model language that would allow for payment to be withheld? Or we just want to leave it up to them?
Yeah, I don't really want to tie their hands or obligate them to a particular outcome. Okay, any anticipated challenges? Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ton.
What's the point of payments being withheld? What does that mean?
We just deleted that.
I know, but curiosity.
Yeah, we deleted it because because right now what happens is the state pays a voucher to the hotel on behalf of an individual. And they felt at one point in time that they didn't have authorization to withhold payment. So we, in legislation, gave the department authorization to withhold payment if the
They weren't-
hotel
yeah.
didn't meet the legal requirements of, safe and sanitary and, all of the things that we've already talked about here. Now that this moving to the community holding whatever agreement that they hold with a hotel, they can include that right within their agreement. We don't have to tell them to do that. So that's going to be something that they are actually going to have a lot more flexibility to do than the state did. But we don't need to say it in here because it's going to be something that will be between whomever, it could be community action agency, it could be another shelter provider or whatever, is having an agreement with a hotel. There will be a written agreement with the hotel, and they can include in that agreement the ability to withhold payments until the conditions are met. Like if somebody, the state recently did this with a hotel in Rutland, for instance. They withheld payment because the health department did a survey and it did not meet licensing standards or whatever it's called. And went back and did a recertification. They still hadn't corrected all the things they needed to. And so payments were withheld. That's what it means.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have, I think we should leave number 7 to
That
be
should just
last.
go to the end of
Yeah.
the line, right?
Okay, now let's talk about, so we have taken out 6 and then we have okayed everything 1 through 5. And now we are looking to the things that we're thankful that Ann kept track of, that we're moving here.
So the next one would be the one where we already had looked at the language. I think Katie has the full version, which is whether continuation in emergency shelter includes expectations. Would include an expectation regarding household participation in case management. And then what I have doesn't have what we had added or other.
It'd be helpful for me to read what I have. This section looks different based on all the things you've been adding.
Okay, great.
So I've just have a new 6, expanded use of 211 within the intake system.
Yeah.
7, whether continuation and temporary shelter, we should call that emergency shelter. Okay, whether continuation in emergency shelter should include an expectation regarding household participation and case management services or other expectations such as night limits on the use of hotels and motels, and if so, what elements and in what circumstances participation and case management services or other expectations should be applied.
Sounds good to me.
Mhm.
That's a question on what's the interplay between that and what's intended by number 3 above, talked about appropriate measures and methods for accountability. So how is accountability?
It's a community action.
That's the
action
agency
agency's account.
doing their job.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay,
Should we say that?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
Yeah, that's.
Appropriate measures
Not
and
clear.
methods for accountability
of,
of community action
Right.
agencies.
In fulfilling the intent of the act or something like that.
right.
Um,
I respectfully suggest any action agency and sub-grantees.
Yeah. Community partners.
So that they also have a structure.
Yes, it's community action agency. We should put community partners, but we should specifically add domestic violence in there because they're going to be receiving a direct grant from the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing us back to that. That's why they call this last part sausage making,
Yeah.
because, lots of different things that- And in the end, you have something that vegetarians don't like.
Subdivision 8, whether the use of emergency shelter should include financial participation, and if so, what that participation should include.
That's fine to put it in there. That's one that I was suggesting that I had referenced before, but we didn't have any discussion as opposed to a couple others that we
Oh,
I think
discussed.
then,
So
yeah.
I hold off.
I'm fine with putting that in because, it's, there's 2 camps on this. And so let's hear the recommendations. The task force recommends no payment. The department has been operating that you have to utilize all of your resources before you get.
No, I'm
Shelter?
talking about the 1/3, you have to contribute 1/3 of your income.
And I'm talking about that too.
Oh, okay, both. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
And exhibit, okay.
Yeah. So I think it's a good thing to keep in.
Plus, there's been proposals around, you have to contribute it, but it gets put into a savings for your rental. So there's all sorts of variations that need to be fleshed out.
Ask if that provision to be read again.
Yep. Whether the use of emergency shelter should include financial participation, and if so, what that participation should include.
Does financial participation lead towards a yes, no on whether they contribute in paying for it, or does it leave open the option of a savings arrangement?
I think it leaves it open.
That's what it was intended to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Because
They help contribute.
yeah. Or that it can be saved, because if you're, the way the rules are right now, you have to utilize all your resources. There's some financial rulemaking there, and it doesn't make sense because if you're going to need to pay rent, you're going to need assistance to pay first and last month's rent and all of that kind of stuff. So and then it leaves it open for them to give us advice about what that would be. Okay, Anne, you had other ones that we had discussed as
Yes.
well.
The next one was the one about prioritization. And we looked at,
Is this number 6 now?
what number? are we up to?
We're up to number like 8, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, we're up to number 8. I have 2 more. Hey,
So just, I just want to explain the background.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the ones that we had generally said should be transferred to this list is the one that talks about how to triage priority populations. And then we had a separate conversation about the issue of prioritization, which is where Ghibli and I worked on some language, and we realized that those were covering kind of the same area. So our recommendation is not to include the how to triage when there are insufficient beds, but to go to our suggested language, which Katie will read.
I don't know if I have this.
Oh, you don't know?
I just have a note that says.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Slash
have it here.
clarification.
Sorry, I have it as back and forth between Jubilee and I. This is roughly then, how prioritization should occur for emergency shelter and what priority categories should exist under those parameters. So this is the discussion about having the feedback on what used to be our whole
Will
priority
you send
list.
that to everybody?
Yeah,
And
sorry.
Katie? Remember, just to refresh people's memory, we took out the whole section that identified people over 60, the blah, blah, blah. Okay, and this is language that is essentially replacing that and saying the implementation plan needs to deal with the process of prioritization.
What
and
is the
what that would be.
prioritization going to be, right?
Can I ask a clarifying question? So emergency shelter is broken into two subgroups now, and only the subgroup that's labeled
Yes.
first one, temporary, does prioritization.
You're correct, and I had a little, you'll see when you get the copy, it said subpart A.
Okay,
So yes, it would only apply to that, and that's, okay, let's see.
maybe I'll, throughout the draft, if we're specifying one, I'll call it either emergency temporary shelter or emergency transitional shelter.
Okay, yeah. But this doesn't show it's Julie's response saying, I think that's perfect.
Okay.
Because this is what I sent her.
How do you feel about within those parameters?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm not under, yeah, within those parameters.
Okay, so we just received 438, Ann and Jubilee's suggested language, how prioritization would occur for emergency shelter. What does that mean?
It's the A and B, Katie knows what that.
Oh, of A, the A.
Yeah, of A, right.
Yeah, and what priority categories should exist under those parameters?
Which Katie was just suggesting instead of under those parameters,
Within,
within, yeah.
okay. Are people okay with that language? This is getting to the concept of who is going to be served. Okay, all right, that's a yes.
Just one question. Are we assuming, since we're not using the language of the, God, my brain here, the categories, all the categories, since we're not providing it, are we assuming that they're going to use that same language? Do we instruct them to use that language anywhere?
No, we're asking them to come up with what the priority categories
Yeah,
should
the
be.
priority categories are, but we already have a list of who's eligible.
No, we don't,
No,
we took that out.
We call
I
it.
know we took it out, but haven't we been using it in lots of other ways and other places?
Not in this bill.
Not in this bill, okay.
The only
All right.
place was where we,
Budget, which will go away.
Right,
Yeah.
it just feels like it's slowly getting branded into my brain as a thing that's real.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's gone, right? Yeah, okay.
You'll need it for you'll need it for another year. Yeah. Okay, I have something I want to add when we get, when we
Okay.
get to the end of your.
that's everything that I had worked on with Jubilee. I had another piece to suggest because I don't think it's fleshed out anywhere and maybe it's enough, but the extreme weather shelter, more of the details. I have a note to myself, see page 2, March 13.
VCAP?
VCAP, yes. Will that remain, will thresholds be decided locally or by the state in terms of whether it's extreme weather?
Yeah, we said that they're allowed for regional. We have regional in there.
Right, but who's making the decision?
The state is making the decision.
Oh, the state is making a decision. Okay, all right. There's a question about transportation and so forth. How will it determine where the shelters need to be? I think we're covered that in other planning pieces. Yeah, I guess we really, we do have a piece on details of
Yeah.
planning. I think we're okay on.
They were very concerned about the presents themselves at the shelter language. Because it does seem like the person has to get themselves there.
Oh,
And so that would be the one thing I would lift up if you were willing to consider.
Is that's still in the language, in other
It's
words?
still, my
Oh,
understanding.
any
is
homeless individual who presents themselves at the shelter,
Where
right?
is that?
Page 8, top of page 8, it's under 2206. Weather event shelter. And that first sentence ends with homeless individuals who presents themselves.
Well, I think that it's appropriate there.
Well, the example they gave us, sometimes outreach workers are going out to find the people, but they're not at the shelter when they.
Somebody's gonna take them there.
Fair enough. As long as that's what it means to you, that's okay with us. We just wanted to make sure it didn't limit it to only people who actually came to a building.
As opposed to.
We just say
Out
who's-
there, or we would say ask for services. Or something like
Seeks
that.
shelter.
Seeks services.
Seeks, a homeless individual who
Seek
seeks
shelter.
shelter, who seeks shelter.
Okay,
What numbers are we talking about?
So we're way back on
Page
page, the
eight.
very top of page
Page
8,
Right here. Okay. Oh,
replacing,
Okay.
who presents themselves
Who
at the
seeks
shelter with
shelter,
who
yeah.
seeks shelter.
yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, so,
Where were we?
we are still on page 19. And we have just added a bunch of things to the implementation plan. And I wanna, and the very last one would then be any anticipated challenges requiring a legislative solution.
I have two more that I think you've added or.
Okay.
So I have the appropriate level of required intake and assessment processes for each of the various levels of shelter that a household may utilize for households that are at risk of homelessness and for households experiencing unsheltered homelessness.
I apologize. Yeah, that's the one I referenced as saying that's the one we were gonna move from. That was in the advisory committee. And that's the other one, other than prioritization, that would be moved from 17 to be part of the implementation plan rather than floating in the advisory committee.
Then the one I was told to add from the Vermont Legal Aid memo,
Which we might have dealt with already, but.
Okay. How to best ensure that there is equitable access to shelter and services for households experiencing homelessness with the specific goal that the program provides shelter and services for the same percentage of households who are chronically homeless as are in the overall population of households who are homeless throughout the state.
Yeah, not that last.
That, yeah.
The geographic thing, I think, is important.
Yeah.
The first part.
Experiencing homeless. Okay, so cut with the specific goal.
Yeah, okay. We do want to ensure geographic access to emergency shelter. Okay, all right, so this is a new concept. It's not any place in anybody's thing. It's just something that popped into my head. So we have this implementation plan, and this is for legislators, so I'm not asking anybody else around the table, around the room. This is, the implementation plan is going to be presented back to us. So what? What if we disagree?
Well, then we pass a bill.
I am just wondering if there needs to be an approval process by the General Assembly or not, or maybe just by the committees of jurisdiction, or you think we would just pass an amendment to?
I would, my thought,
I think,
initial answer would be, we don't, it has to be provided to us. And then it's up to us, and that's part of why it has to be in the same biennium. If we disagree with something they've done, then we pass a bill saying, no, you have to do it this way instead.
so I, one of the things that has been a problem is sort of like the continuing revision of access via rulemaking by the department or policies. And I'm not saying that, there's any ill intent there. I'm just saying that I think it's one of the reasons why you might recall I said this morning when I was very nervous about taking out the whole section about who is eligible or prioritized, because then that leaves that open for it not being in statute. And I don't think that's a thing. I'm not sure the best way to deal with it, and I haven't really experienced something in my tenure, and I don't know if other people have. You've been here a lot longer than I have, but about something that would, so it's a report back, and I'm not really sure how we would approve or not approve that, because a committee can't really do
Right,
that.
we
It's the
wouldn't.
General Assembly that has to.
To draft a bill, no matter what they send back, it's not gonna be in the format of a bill. So it's going to take a proactive action by a legislator reading it to say, yes, I want this drafted, or no, I don't want that drafted.
Okay, all right, so then we definitely need February 1st. Okay, because we would have to do a committee bill, because yeah, okay. All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
and
You've
if we
answered my
disagree
question.
with parts, we'd have to take testimony and
Yeah.
so forth, so.
Yeah. Okay, so, I'm just forewarning people here around this table and then around the room that there are going to be elements that I'm going to want to put in statute. Like, like prioritization or whatever, that those are going to be in statute. Okay, all right, that answered my question, thank you. Okay, so we have completed down to line 18. My pen's running out.
Yeah.
Okay, then as part of the plan required to this section, the department and submit standards of operation of community. Okay, so I think we need to change the language on that. Standards of operation, we're really looking for but that's the only one. What people have asked if there are any standards for the weather shelters, the extreme weather shelters. That was a piece of feedback I saw in a couple of the things. Does the department have anything about extreme weather in terms of guidance?
Good afternoon, for the record, Lily Stoker, Director of the Department. Office of Economic Opportunity from the Department of Children and Families. We have, at this time, I would say, minimal guidance and rely on some of the existing housing opportunity grant guidance. We do actually currently have a notice of funding out for, a coordinated entity to help us further develop that guidance for winter 2025-26, as well as then help with administration of that program during that winter. So it is something that we hope to have by the summer, assuming that we get bids on that. So notice of funding. So I think we would have this then going to funding them.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we reference back to the sections here, and we reference both the emergency with the winter weather one and then the second one.
The standards and operations of
Yeah.
winter weather and emergency.
And I don't think we need to say based on this, because one, it's not going to be something that's going to be relevant.
Right.
There'll be new ones issued, I guess is what I'm saying. Perhaps will have be hard.
So what does it mean, submit to who? Develop and submit.
No,
Yeah,
I don't think that's something that we need to
Coming
see.
as part of the plan. Oh, you don't want to.
Oh, it's part of the whole plan.
I know.
Oh, yeah, so we will be
It's a-
getting it just as.
It is part of the plan, but I think that's just part of the department's responsibilities. I'm not sure it's part of the plans.
So, define community-based shelter as the plan, as the standards developed by the department. So I think that's what is being discussed here, that you're kind of creating this definition. Where where are we? Community-based shelter means shelter that meets the department's standards for the operation of shelters. That's why I'm using community-based shelter there, because if we don't have department created standards for community-based shelters, then that definition is meaningless.
So we don't call them community-based shelters anywhere in the bill anymore.
You do, I mean, you reference that an emergency shelter and both transitional and temporary can be a community-based shelter. So maybe that's a construct you don't need anymore.
Well, yeah, just so you can see there's an example under our.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Community-based, yeah.
Master to White Grant, developing shelter capacity.
I'm just, uh. Okay. Okay. I guess leave it here. I would just say, I was thinking about like, it doesn't seem like it's necessary to be part of the plan, but it is necessary to have the department do it.
Yes.
And so I was just thinking about moving it to the department responsibilities of the department section.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
Sure, although, let me think this through. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. I'm sort of thinking like it's sort of a one-time thing that they do, but that's not necessarily true. They might go back and redo their standards at some point.
And what I'm getting at is this plan needs to be submitted to the legislature, and I honestly don't think that we need to see shelter standards.
Okay,
We're not the experts on what it should be or do.
okay, so I'll
So I
move
think we
that
should
to
just
the,
move that to the responsibilities of the department
okay,
and don't reference the current ones.
okay.
Okay, we have finished page 19. Multiple check. Yay. Okay, so the
Yeah,
rest of it
yeah.
is a lot easier.
Oh, yeah, we got a bunch
Okay.
of quick pages,
We
right?
do. All right, I'm just gonna let's see if Pat have any feedback about this. They shouldn't, since we did everything they asked us to do.
They were celebrating.
Okay. Huh? Yes. Okay, all right, so, I was just looking through all of this and, okay, so that's good. Since this section specifically is the Community Action Agency section in statute, Title 3, remember, now that we're amending Title 3. And you went through all these changes yesterday.
Yeah.
And nobody has any feedback about them. So I think that we're putting big check marks on them. Right?
I'm really glad we caught this and updated it.
Yeah.
It's really outdated.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, big check marks, page 20. Page 21. So I want to call attention because we did make a substantive change, page 21. It wasn't just updated language one. So, and this was based upon feedback from the community action agencies on number 4.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's actually, it makes more sense because they aren't the housing providers.
Provider maintainer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're checking off page 21. People aren't gonna have to stay as late as they thought. All right, don't get it. Don't fix it. Don't fix it. Okay.
That's good.
Okay. Page 22, again, these are just updated language things. All right, I'm not seeing any issues. I'm not seeing any heads shake the opposite direction. All right, page 22. Now we're on to page 23. Okay, I just want to confirm this because this is what I heard Lily say when she was talking. And I want to make sure it's accurate. This is on the community services plan that is completed every 3 years and updated annually.
They complete a needs assessment every 3 years, and then we get an annual work plan.
When they complete the needs assessments, they don't do
The
anything.
subsequent work plan should then include and their annual work plan has to reflect whatever's in the most recent community needs assessment. So, the work plan right after that last needs assessment would then be reflected, updated to reflect those most recent identified needs and strengths.
So this language doesn't say anything about a 3-year needs assessment. It talks only in terms of a community services plan, and that's what's updated every 3 years. It doesn't talk about a needs assessment.
Yeah, jinxed us.
Well,
We're page 23.
But it's still, I think it's still, it sounds to me like it's still in keeping with what Lily's suggesting, that just instead of maybe completed, the services plan would be updated every 3 years following an assessment. Maybe we don't need to say, all right, a needs assessment. And maybe we don't need to say that because that's their practice, or maybe we do need to say.
But I'm not hearing that there is a community services plan.
But we're saying it.
Oh, this is existing law, so are we asking for a whole new thing that is not an existing law? Or have they not been doing it that way? They call it something
Well,
different.
again, they have to do a plan every year, so what they're doing is like more frequent,
Right,
I would say, than.
and we're saying, do a comprehensive plan every 3 years and update it annually. And I just want to make sure that that's going to be, you're still going to have annual updates that you can call a work.
Yeah, I
plan or
think
whatever.
that, I don't think.
Okay.
there's anything. Yeah, I think it functionally works.
All right,
The CATS decided to leave this up to Lily's interpretation. They are concerned it violates their federal environment.
that's what I'm asking.
If Lily thinks it's okay, then we'll go with that.
If anything, I think it's more.
I think it's more
I think
too.
it's more.
They just weren't sure if they needed that exact language that used to be there in order to comply. They're not opposed to this language as long as it's not jeopardizing their federal funding.
Which is the
8 and
language
9, right?
that's-
Lines 8 and 9.
Yeah,
It used to say complete an annual work plan and every 3 years needs assessment.
I'm wondering if we should update this.
I don't think
to
that's
what-
what
It
that's not
doesn't
what
say
it
that.
said.
Not in the statute here.
The statute
What
says
is-
the community service plan shall be completed every 3 years and updated annually.
No,
No, that's ours.
That's what.
No, what it used to say was the community services plan shall be annually.
Something annually,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Updated annually.
But updates highlighted like it was, I don't know.
Like it was new, that's why I don't know.
I think that was just the editors moving my
Okay,
language
but
around.
updated
Yeah.
annually. Yeah, I think we accomplished the same thing. I think we're good. Lily says it's good, it's good. All right. Okay, and that we just want to include the housing, the homelessness stuff, yeah, okay,
So we're leaving lines 8, 9, and 10 as it appears in this version.
yes. Okay, and the rest just changes it to Community Action Agency on that page. Oops, wait a minute. I've got to put my official check mark on it. Yeah, there's not really a secret. Okay, and then, on 2 and 3, that's just updating language. C, is something asked for by community action agencies that the board shall adopt term limits to governance members. That appear, I'm gonna say that you guys are the experts on what you, do under federal rule, and that if that's okay under federal rule, does the department have any problem with that?
So getting rid of the board term,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's not, this is fine, they're.
Okay,
I have a problem with it.
okay.
Why do we have board not capitalized everywhere else but the board?
Oh,
There's
that's
that.
outdated. Yep, I can take care of that.
Because and what we, you don't have to go in and capitalize board everywhere because that's the new.
You do.
We do, okay, so.
You probably
I knew it had to be consistent.
I was just crossing out the capital and it's not, it's going the other direction. Is that what you're saying?
well, the board, is it a specific, I mean, we're talking about a specific board. It's
So it should be capitalized.
Yeah, I
It's not a
think,
specific board. It's a board of each of the agencies. It's not like the Board of Mental Health. I think.
Yeah, all of
Yeah,
it.
that's just lowercase then.
Lowercase.
Oh, it can be lowercase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say lowercase because it's not a specific name.
so then should we, instead of the board, it makes it sound like,
Yeah.
Boards shall.
Each board shall adopt.
Oh, that sounds good. Each member of each board selected. No, that doesn't make sense.
Each board shall adopt term limits to govern its members.
That sounds official. Each,
Just the way I said it, Brenda.
it sounded good.
Okay, all right, check on that. Appropriation. This is transition planning. These should all add up to 10. I think they do now.
So 6.5 million should be 10.
No, the top is 10.
Right.
Yeah. Line 17 is 6.5. And included in this area, the department, 6.5 to DCF for distribution to community action agencies and the statewide domestic violence, because they're also in transition.
And this has already been designated, you said?
This is being held in appropriations, yes.
Thought you said that.
So, the transition planning for things like, 211, where did?
So if that decision ends up being made, then that would come via the community action agencies or the departments.
Yeah, I just wanted, for other disparate things that we want to make sure that it's somewhere around there, there's
Yeah.
money for that, yeah.
I'm so sorry, I'm doing two things at once. We said in subdivision 1 to add statewide organization.
It's a statewide domestic violence organization, yeah. And 3 to DCF for continued development of need-specific shelter, that should say shelter.
Oh, 3 point.
Oh, well, then we say housing. Housing for, I think they were intending to want it to be shelter.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. Is this like an investment in longer term housing?
Yeah.
Or is it an investment for further development of shelters?
I
which
think
is
they
what-
wanted shelter. Can you confirm that for me?
I'm
Lily?
sorry, I was looking.
This housing.
This, on page 25. I wrote housing, but I think it means shelter.
Yeah, I would,
I mean, these are a whole list of next step up types of housing.
yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not sure what the intent was, right? I think if you're looking to develop
I think Spirit
resources
is
for
the best.
people experiencing homelessness, then, right, I think shelter, if you want the department to develop permanent housing, then maybe.
I don't think it's the department's role to develop permanent housing.
No, that's,
Change
right,
that, yeah.
yeah.
Depending on where-
Continued development of shelter capacity throughout the state.
Yeah, I think we should just be more generic about that.
Right.
Teresa, I got lost when you were doing the numbers. I got a couple of them.
Okay, just a second.
Okay.
Let me just finish this thought. So we're still on numbers, though. We're at the top of page 25. So 3 million to the Department for Children and Families for the
Yeah.
continued development
That one I
of
had.
shelter capacity
Throughout the state.
Do we want throughout or do we want in?
in, yeah.
Oh, in the state.
Go Ray, I was hoping somebody would do that.
Okay, and then we'll explain the rest of that, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so Brenda, coming back.
Okay, yeah, I got a couple.
Line 15
Yeah,
is 10 million. That's the total of all of these things, okay?
okay,
6.5,
add that one.
okay, goes to DCF for community action and domestic violence. 500, we didn't change that, that's the one
Didn't
that's there.
change.
0.5, yeah.
Okay, and 3 million to DCF for shelter capacity expansion,
Okay, thank you.
okay? And then, so we're leaving that done. Future appropriations, legislative intent, and we had feedback from the joint fiscal office about this. To say it is the intent of the General Assembly that in fiscal year 2027 and thereafter, equivalent funds base and one-time, equivalent funds and resources base and one-time used in fiscal year 25, and then the rest of it.
Oh, okay, so that's not there.
No,
I'm looking.
no, it's not there. This is the feedback from joint fiscal office.
Okay.
So the joint fiscal office, let me try that again, make sure I had it right. It is intended of the General Assembly that in fiscal year 2027 and thereafter, equivalent funds and resources, base and one-time, used in fiscal year 2025, and then the rest of it.
And so just to clarify, because we can say we intend anything in terms of what we hope. It's not binding, but also throughout, for better or for worse, the underlying piece about appropriations for the whole program is depending on available funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a reason to,
Sorry. I'm sorry. Anne was that was an educational moment for us.
Yes, yes.
Just a reminder.
All of this is.
A reminder, all of it is dependent on an
Available
annual General Assembly appropriations bill and what it says we can afford to do.
Right.
Voting up or down on an appropriations bill. It all is, the money part is all conditioned on what is voted for in the annual budget.
In the state's budget, yeah. Okay, do you have that, Katie?
Yeah.
Okay, I think, did look like somebody had a question. I wasn't sure if it was on or,
is there a reason why we wouldn't want to specify the amount of money that we're talking about? Because this
we
leads to a
don't
little,
know all of the money.
you don't know all the money at this
No.
point.
Kind of one fiscal.
Yeah, we have that, but that's not all of it.
Oh.
So there are administrative resources that we don't know how much of that money is tied. We know that there are administrative resources within the department that should transfer to the community, whether it's to 211 or community action. But it is, we don't know the dollar amount, so.
Gotcha.
So the 81,970,000 could be more
There will be administrative
administrative.
things that are in the budget for the department, yes.
Okay.
But that's not additional, that's just.
That's why, right, that's why that's not new resources that we would ship. And go ahead and say what you said.
That's why we added the word resources.
JFO, that's why JFO suggested we add that.
Good idea.
Okay. They will be working with, if this bill passes, they'll be working with DCF to specifically identify those things over the course of the summer, so. Okay,
26 million for HOP, that would go to HOP.
all of those, the things that you have on there, those things would all go to VHAR,
BHAR.
this new program we're creating.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, effective dates. What are you chuckling about, Kate?
There's so many changes that I feel like I wrote that a lifetime ago. I don't even know anymore.
I think that we will rely on you to update it as it's necessary.
Okay. I think it's helpful.
We want to make sure that the
You want to say
planning and implementation is
Happening.
happening
before?
before, right?
Yeah, and you
So
want
which
the
is good.
community the changes in the community action agency chapter,
We might as well do that effective
That's July 1, right?
2025. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's anything in there. The planning is okay if that language takes effect sooner. Completed every year and updated every 3 years and updated annually. That's okay to take effect now. Okay. Okay. Appropriation takes.
Well, page 26. Well, committee was speaking. Who's the representative?
Okay. Katie, timeline. I know you've been making changes as we've been going. When do you think that we could have a, clean, or not, it won't, whatever, however it won't be clean yet, because it still have yellows and stuff in it, but, what's your time, just tell me your timeline.
Would you like to see it edited? I'm assuming yes.
I don't know, editing hasn't done that good a job catching some of these things.
Neither have I. So I could, take a stab at doing my own editing tonight and send out a draft to the committee tonight that says, draft.
That,
And then you can look at it tonight. And I can get a clean copy in the morning that has been edited.
so, I'm just trying to save editing and you work, because I guarantee you that, some one of us is gonna say capitalize this or put a period here or take out of the, and I'm just wondering if, we should, just work off from that sort of.
I appreciate that. Every official draft has to get edited anyway,
Okay.
so.
I was gonna say, after, if
I was just
we
trying
then
to-
make changes, yeah,
I was just,
we'll have to see what they then change. So,
Do you think you'll be sending me changes tonight? Is that why you're saying this? Or during committee tomorrow morning?
yeah, any changes that we do would be during our 9 o'clock committee meeting.
Okay, so I'll have a clean draft ready and that will be the version I walk through at
Okay.
9 AM.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then, I am gonna ask that people look at what Katie sends us tonight, before we get here tomorrow, so that any questions, you can make comments or whatever, right? Make a note in your, so that we can actually just work through them relatively quickly tomorrow, okay? And do things like, okay, check cross references, do all those things. Katie will do those things, but it's always helpful to make sure that we're understanding, because it's good. I just really want to thank people for everybody in the room, all the way around, in the room, and those folks listening, and particularly Katie, for sticking with all of us today, and everybody having respectful conversations and proposing alternative language in way that's efficient and hopefully works for all of us tomorrow. So appreciate everybody's work today, really, a whole lot. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Lori, we're done. Back here at 9 tomorrow,
Sorry, babe, you don't know how much I needed this.
except for Zong.
You're like my best friend.